We're going to move on here to our last game here, the Steelers versus the Jets on Sunday night. Let's start with the Steelers offense versus Jets defense. Of course, Mike Tomlin makes the move to Russell Wilson. And I mean, Tej, who might ever doubt Mike Tomlin? I suppose I'm not going to say, oh, Russell Wilson played this incredible game. I do think, when you look back at the film, certainly Justin Fields had some struggles. And again, it's not like Russell Wilson played this incredible game. I think he had a rough start, get to a lot more play action later on, and kind of some of those vertical throws that ended up in receptions, it's not even like those were perfect throws. You get some weird bounces of the ball, and you have just really good kind of receiver play from the outside where it's like, hey, if Justin Fields got that, maybe he'd still be playing there. So overall, I think the offense, you can maybe live on a, hey, we're a play action and deep shot type of offense. I still think, Russell Wilson obviously has his limitations, but for the Jets defense, feels like, injuries really piling up. And unfortunately, I think later in the game, you're able to kind of spring some more runs where, if your team construction is, hey, we're going to be an elite defense and just have kind of a complementary offense, it's what we talk about. It's so hard kind of year over year for your defense to continue to play at that high level, continue to be healthy, where they're still a good unit. That's a fact to me. I don't feel like that is really up for debate, but it's just hard to win games from the defensive side of the ball that often.
Yeah, there were some cracks to the Jets defense the second half of last season, where their performance dipped a little bit. And I think a lot of people just chalked it up to they just didn't have much offense going on the other side of the ball. So it was hard for them to get up for every game. But this game, you saw some of those cracks again where down to down basis, they played pretty well. In this game, they just gave up so many explosive plays, both on the ground and through the air, where you have George Pickens just having one of the better games I've seen from a receiver this entire season, where he had 10 targets and generated plus 10 total EPA on those targets. So many contested catches he was able to bring down. And then you also have Arthur Smith kind of leaning into what Russell Wilson likes to do, where he called 9 play action passes in this game. Russell Wilson went 8 for 9 for 150 yards, as pointed out by Next Gen. And Russell Wilson, when you run play action and you hit the middle of the field, which is kind of the main advantage of play action because of what it does to the linebackers, it can work out really well. But for the Steelers, since neither Russell Wilson or Justin Fields throw over the middle of the field, Arthur Smith has a lot more designs where it's play action and you're throwing, outside the middle of the field, like towards the sideline more. And that's where Pickens is best. So it kind of works out very well for them there. But what do you think about that quote that always gets thrown around where it says, when you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks? I think the Steelers, Texas football, those are kind of examples of where there's quarterback debates right now. Where do you kind of stand on that?
Yeah, I get why the quote is a thing. I think that for the Steelers, I guess it's do you think either of your quarterback is kind of in the top half of the league? I'm not sure. So it's well, do you have 2 quarterbacks? Do you have 0 quarterbacks? You just need a quarterback that can, I think, run the offense. I do think it's always interesting when I look at it from the outside, because obviously we're not watching the practice film or what is this specific player doing, because we can just watch what they're doing in the game and say hey, Quinn Ewers has this specific strength, Arch Manning has this specific strength, which is different and can open you up kind of in different ways. I'm just glad, I guess, I don't have to make those kinds of decisions, Tej. That seems like a tough thing, where even outside of because you can look at it and just at a player level and say, hey, player 1, it puts us in a better position to succeed than player 2. But then you have all the locker room issues. You have all the kind of natural complications that come with that. Obviously in college, is a guy going to transfer or things like that. I think in the NFL, certainly they are able to handle their business a little bit differently. I will say that Justin Fields did a good job in some of the press conferences this week, where he's you know what? I didn't play good enough. And I think you could look at his film and say, you know what? You didn't play good enough. So I am glad to see that. So overall, I mean, you just hope you have better quarterbacks. It's when I'll see these kind of quotes about this would be my draft strategy. It's my draft strategy is just draft the good players, Tej. I don't know why we're making it so complicated. Let me just get all the future Hall of Famers. I don't know why we're making so many problems with that. Speaking of some future Hall of Famers or potential future Hall of Famers, I want to flip over to the Jets offense versus the Steelers defense here. Obviously, the Jets add Devontae Adams. So the theory behind that, and it makes a lot of sense, where Devontae can play inside, you can open up space for Garrett Wilson outside, and then even you have snaps here where Wilson's inside, he's able to, you let Devontae be isolated kind of on the outside. So, a good receiving unit certainly, I do think like Rodgers, he's not playing bad. Like I think he's playing fine where he can still throw well in that short and intermediate area. On the interception, like that was a sick throw that obviously it ends up kind of bouncing out of Garrett Wilson's hands. I think like overall, it's a frustrating kind of like combination of things because you do like seeing like Brees Hall using or being used more in the pass game, but just feels like when they're not clicking on all cylinders, or you just have like a few balls that end up that like should be a completion, but it's not a completion. Just like more and more kind of threads get pulled out, and then it kind of all ends up falling apart. What do you have kind of? And then obviously, I mean, we didn't mention, or I haven't yet mentioned like special teams issues. Like that's obviously going to be variance in a game where I mean the game, you could say like it's closer than I think what the final score would have said, but still when you look at it, it's like, oh well, there are kind of fundamental issues, unfortunately, on both sides of the ball for the Jets right now that probably need addressing.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything you said there. Where you have Aaron Rodgers, who has played fine this year, and I think his production has looked a little bit worse than his actual play, just because you have situations where like Allen Robinson has had some untimely drops throughout the season. Garrett Wilson had like the huge drop in this game that was almost returned for a pick six, and like that like kind of shifted the momentum of the game there. And the Jets did finish with a higher success rate than the Steelers in this game. It was just like the turnover by the Jets plus the explosiveness by the Steelers was the difference, between this score, or the final score in this game. And yeah, like Rodgers is going to have a lower average up the target with Devontae Adams. I feel like because he is so good. With his release from the line of scrimmage, where you can just throw 5 yard slants to him. They really tried to get him on one in this game, and it got knocked down a couple times. Brees Hall was able to be used in the receiving game. Like this Jets offense could be fine going forward. They just keep having certain mishaps, either because of drops or because of special teams issues where they're just not able to fully put it together yet.
Yeah, and you think about, I guess, both of these teams, like the Steelers, I don't know, I guess they're just gonna keep on finding ways to win for the Jets. It just feels like they're, kind of on the wrong side of it now. Where we talked about, I just, the team makeup, like your margin for error on offense is a lot smaller. When you're kind of built around a great defense, but of course the defense isn't always going to be stable. Yeah, I hope that they just like pull it together in some sort of way. I think the league is certainly more fun when the Jets are good.